Well, good evening and welcome back to another edition of the Brothas-in-law. To those of you who are new to our channel, Mike and I are both former police officers. I was a Virginia State Trooper for 7 years, and Mike is retired police officer out of California, Pleasanton, California. And we're here just to give our insights to a lot of these police-involved incidents that have occurred across the country. And we're just giving you our perspective from two former law enforcement officers and what we would do and whether or not this is something that a reasonable officer would do. So tonight we're going to be talking about, was this an unlawful entry? This is a video I think that took place, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot to look at the date again to remind myself. Took place a couple months back. Oh, you froze up.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the date. I'm not sure. I don't think it was that long ago.
Yeah, I think
actually it might have been a month.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
Wasn't that long ago?
Right. I think you're right. Yeah, and basically what happens. Oh, before we get into it, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you're new to this to joining us tonight. We appreciate it, and we love hearing your comments. Welcome Tone, welcome Zach, welcome Stacy, welcome Goat. Thank y'all for joining us, and everybody else is going to be jumping on here a little bit later. So yeah, this is a good one to talk about, and you need to know when an officer can enter your home. What is an unlawful entry? Right. We think that's very important.
And you know what? Depending on as we're gonna get into this, but depending on the circumstances, sometimes officers can make mistakes that way too. Sometimes they could be getting caught up in thinking that they're doing the right thing or what is necessary, and without taking a step back and saying, "Wait a minute, let's look at this again before we take any more action." Cops are not perfect either; they make mistakes, right? And we're gonna get into that. Everything going on, I think people are more about what can we do to challenge an officer in doing their jobs. You see what I'm saying? That's more focused on that than what the ultimate goal of the officer is to do. You know what I'm saying? And again, folks, you know how Corey and I do it. We're going to tell you, we're going to eliminate the racial aspect of this completely and just look at it straight from a legal perspective or response from an officer's perspective, and that's it. We're gonna keep the racial emotions out of it. Now, I might talk a little bit about the racial emotions after. We'll see how it goes, right? But we're gonna start off by just what happened, whether or not it should have happened, how legal was it, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So when we start this video, what I want you to do is pay attention to the call for service, and you as the officer going up to this residence with that call to service in mind, because that's what we have to go off of when we're dispatched to these calls. What they're telling us, the who, what, where, and when's, and we got to figure out the why when we get there. So based on that information that you have, let's see where this leads us down road. This takes us down, and like Mike said, let's leave the race out of it, and let's go with what we have. All right. We're going to get this set up here.
All right.
And so, like I said, this is going to be the call for service, and I got it turned up a little loud here because the lady's real soft spoken and she's talking with a bit of an accent, so it's a little bit hard to hear. But she's describing what she sees and would like a unit to respond. So here we go.
Oh, hi. I want to report a suspicious activity.
Okay, where is it happening?
Okay, I live and I was pulling out of the driveway to go home. And my neighbor's house is at 5111, and she passed away. The house is empty, and now there is African American with sweatpants, flip-flop, and a white shirt on the sitting on the front door.
Okay, and what's the street? I got the address.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got it. On Arrowhead Drive.
Okay, on Arrowhead, perfect. So you said this person is by 5111 at the neighbor's house, and she's recently passed away.
Yes, the house is empty.
Okay. And where did you see this person at?
Oh, I was pulling out of the driveway to go home, and I saw her sitting on the step at the front door.
Okay, so just sitting on the step by the front door.
Yes, it's
Okay.
close to the front door, yes.
Sure. Okay. All right. We will have an officer go over there and check them out.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome.
All right, now I just want to stop that real quick, Mike, and let's listen to what the call of service was. All right, this was a neighbor in that neighborhood who did not recognize somebody at a particular house who she knew the previous homeowner that lived in the house that passed away. She sees this black male over there, and in her eyes, maybe she never seen him there before. I don't know what type of relationship she has with the previous lady that lived in that house, but let's leave that aside. Now you get that call as the officer. Dispatch is calling to you as the officer. Hey, we get reports of a suspicious black male at said address wearing flip-flops and a white t-shirt. Right? This is all you have as an officer. Going to the house, and she tells you that the homeowner that used to live there has passed away. They passed away, what she said, several weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, something like that. So you, as the officer, this is all the information that you have, right?
And this is sounds like a Spanish woman. Spanish woman that was the reporting party with the thick accent. I'm assuming that's what that was.
What's up, Preston? Thank you for joining us, brother. So that's what we have, Mike. And so now you're getting this call. So I'm going to fast forward it up to the point, because the rest of it is just communications that, it's pertinent to the case, but I don't think it's
well
leading up to the officers arriving on scene.
Before you start that video again, I'm just, in my mind, as an officer getting this call, some of the things that are on my mind is, okay, this person was reported as being suspicious. Well, and it sounds like he was suspicious to this neighbor because she didn't recognize him as belonging to this house who he was sitting at, right?
Correct.
Where he was sitting. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, could this be a suspicious person? I don't know. Let's go and see. I'm thinking along the lines of, I'm going to try to contact this person and find out, just, I'm going to explain to them why I'm there and try to have the conversation of establishing his right to be at the house. You see what I'm saying? Ultimately, right? That's what's in my mind. Just going to this call, I'm thinking of what I'm going to do. You know what I'm saying? What about you, Corey?
Well, and as in any call that you go to, it's always the who, what, where, when, and why.
Right.
You want to get all those W's asked, and figure it out, right? So this is the type of things, and you're also processing different tactics. If this person's going to be aggressive, are they going to like you said, do they belong there? And if they're in there, are they breaking in? All the what ifs. You're running these scenarios all through your head as you're going to the scene, because you're limited to the information, right? What do you know so far, right? You just know there's a black male
that at least this reporting party didn't know and didn't think the black male was supposed to be there. And now we only saying black in this case because that's part of the physical description that this reporting party gave.
There you go.
It's important. Race is an important part of a physical description when you are calling the police for a call for service, obviously, so we know who we're looking for.
Yeah, you got to know who you're looking for.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So those are the type of things I'm thinking about, you know, going to the scene, and ultimately, you know, make it safe.
Right.
Things
And
like
I haven't made up my mind whether or not a crime was being committed. We don't
Right.
know yet. You see
You
what I'm
don't
saying?
know.
I'm not going to assume that it is. I'm not going to assume that it ain't.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Like Zach said, we're gonna get them 5 dubs answered. You know what I mean? That's right, Zach. We need to get those questions answered. So, all right. So I'm gonna push it forward here, so we can get to the nitty gritty here, what we all came here for. And it's probably gonna start right around about the 10-minute mark here, I think. And
Okay.
that's
So at this point, the officers get there on scene,
it.
right? And
Yep.
one of the officers does he? Well, let's watch the video. So they get there on scene. Let's start the video.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going. So yeah, we won't hear him saying police, but he does yell into. Well, let me try to
The
see if I
door
can.
was the door open or did he?
No,
Open?
he opened the door.
Okay.
See, that's the person in the house talking.
Okay. So they've established that there's somebody in the house.
Right.
And he's just standing in a doorway waiting for his partner to come for cover.
Right. Or waiting for that individual to come forward because he did announce himself already.
Okay. So he opened the door physically himself because it was unlocked, but he did open it.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Remember now, he's on the impression that whoever did truly live there is deceased.
Right. And the house was supposed to be vacant.
Right. So he's just telling his partner that he hears somebody in there. He's in there talking to him. So I hope can you hear him talk, Mike?
Yeah, it's a little bit. I can hear him like talking low and whispering, and I'm assuming that's what he's discussing of what he saw and what they're getting ready to do.
All right, so now they made entry.
Pause it right there for a sec.
Yep.
Now, some people would say, well, why they go in with their guns? We're going to get to the entering part in a minute. But since they are in the house and they don't know whether or not this person is supposed to be in there or not, right? They have their guns drawn. And a lot of viewers would say, well, why they got their guns drawn? If I am lawfully going into a house, right? And I suspect that there's a burglary in progress or someone ain't supposed to be in there, lawfully supposed to be in there, it's common for us to have our guns out and ready just in case. So that is not something that is extreme. I'm not entering a house that I think something is going on without drawing my firearm under those circumstances. So that's why they got their guns out.
Correct. Because keep in mind, what do they know? Right. All right. And now you got somebody in here. As of right now, in my eyes, this person that's in here doesn't belong here. Right. So
that's my initial thought anyway. Right.
That's your initial thought going in, because you remember you got to start asking the who, what, where, whens, and whys. And you can't do that just yet.
Now, let me make it clear though, folks. We're explaining this as if we have lawfully entered the house already. Right. And we are investigating a crime that someone reported that there was a trespasser or something like that. That's how we're explaining this to you. Like I said, we're going to go back and we're going to get in the issue of entering the house, which is the point of this video. We're going to get in that in a minute. But for now, this is what we're explaining once we're in the house, what's going on. All right.
Yeah. All right, here we go. We're going to keep it moving.
Police department, come out with your hands up. Come out with your hands up.
Okay.
Keep walking.
This is me.
Okay.
Okay. Come on out here. You don't live here. My coach's house, Coach Rondo.
Okay.
He left me in Torrance here. You can call him and ask him.
Okay. Go ahead and just For right now, just turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
Is it Keontae?
Yes, it's Keontae.
Okay.
Okay.
Put your hands behind your back for a second. We're just going to detain you.
Well, I'm not being detained though.
Because you don't live here, and the person that lived here passed away. So
Okay, can you guys call Coach?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
we'll deal with
Okay.
that. So
Pause it right there for a minute,
No,
Corey.
Tony's going
Yep,
to
I was getting ready to pause it too.
Now, see, when he asked what I'm being detained for, what I would have told him is exactly what the call for service was. Well, you're being detained because we were told that this house was supposed to be vacant,
Right
and there was no one supposed to be here.
here.
So when they saw you here, they called the police. That's what I would have said to this gentleman while I'm detaining him. You see what I'm saying? Because I like to make sure they know exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it whenever I have the opportunity to do so.
Right. Yeah. Zach is correct. He did comply though, and that's the important part, and that's the next part we're gonna talk about. And this is why we like our acronym CALM, right? Comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. He at any time he could have been combative with these guys because again, these officers didn't know if he was a burglar or not. Only thing they know that he didn't belong there. Right. Like Mike said, and so why, like Mike said, so why handcuff him? I would have done the same thing too until I was able to determine, okay, this guy is supposed to be here because you don't know who he is, and at any moment he can flip the script on you, and now all hell's gonna break loose, and you could have prevented that by just detaining him. Now they say we're going to detain you, right? When you are detained, you are not under arrest. You're just
handcuffed do not necessarily mean you are under arrest. Okay, people need that. We talked about that the last show, I remember. So I mean, I say that because a lot of articles I read about this incident, they state in there that he was wrongfully arrested. He was never arrested.
Yeah, he was never arrested,
and I detained.
Right, and I think that's why we say this on our show. There's a difference between the two. When they're going to tell you if you are under arrest. Now, if you're detained and then they find whatever probable cause that they have on you, then they're going to tell you at this point you are under arrest. That's what they should be telling you next, right? So at this point, he's detained for administrative purposes. And I like throwing that in there when I say, hey, you're detained right now for administrative purposes. So that now this is where I'm asking the who, what, where, when, and why. I'm gathering all that information, and that's what's happening here. So Preston, what he said when he walked up to him was, hey, you're going to be detained right now until we figure all this out. Because he was thinking he was being placed under arrest, and he's like, no, you're being detained, right? So that's where we are right now. Now the question is tonight for you all, did the officers have the right to enter that house?
There you go. That's going to be the biggest point of contention right there. Is whether or not the officers could enter that house. What say you, Corey?
Well, I mean, at first I looked at it and I was like, man, would I have done that? For me, in my training, what they taught us in academy and what Virginia's laws are, no, I would not have went in there. Because there's only there's only a few times where a police officer can't enter a home without a warrant. Right now, if a crime was in action, in other words, if this man was in there and they seen him through the window with his pillowcase, putting things in that pillowcase, now they have that probable cause. They see a crime live happen in front of them. They then can enter that home without the search warrant to get that guy.
And again, you got to have enough details about that. That probable cause to enter. You got to have enough details about that to be able to establish that a reasonable person would think that a crime was being committed. They were actually burglars in the house stealing stuff. Like you said, Corey, you saw them putting something in a pillow sack and they're loading up. Then they're looking around. or they see you and all of a sudden, oh no, they start to run to the back of the house or something. There's got to be enough circumstances there, to support that view, right?
Right. See, I mean, I hear you, Preston, and he says reasonable person, knowing the person that owns the house is dead, and you got someone walking around inside, and like, then maybe, you questioning larceny, possibly, and then absolutely go in. But at the same time, I mean,
and we're gonna point that
is
out in a minute here, Preston, because initially I can definitely understand where Preston is coming from, right?
yes,
As an officer, you have no ill will towards anybody or nothing. You legitimately are just trying to make sure ain't nobody burglarizing this house, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the mindset that these officers had is, look, we need, there was reported a suspicious person.
Yeah.
The house was supposed to be vacant according to the neighbor, right?
Yeah.
And ain't nobody supposed to be in there. Okay. These officers acted on that information and didn't take a step back and think about it any further, right?
Right. Is this what a reasonable officer would do? Right. I think it's a gray line, man. I think, I hear where you're coming from, Press. It's one of those things. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I think if you don't, you're good. What you could have done was set a perimeter and try to talk that individual out of the house. You could have stayed at the door frame. Hey, shout to him. Hey, you in the back, come on out. According to the way the law is, that's what they should have done. Now, they didn't see a crime taking place, so that out. They can't go in because of that. Nobody was in there under distress, right?
No, there's no exigent circumstances, so they gotta nix that out.
Right, you gotta X that out. What else we gotta X out?
Hot pursuit. They weren't chasing anybody in there.
Right.
Okay. So you gotta X that out.
Yep.
And consent. Well, obviously, the guys in the house didn't verbally give them consent that, come on in. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do that. So you got to X that out. Right. So what do we to enter a house? You got to have what now? You got to have either probable cause that a crime is being committed at that moment. Right. You got to have hot pursuit, which means if you chasing somebody and they run into the house, you can run in after them. You don't have to stop right there. Okay. Yeah. Or exigent circumstances, which means something's going on in that house or somebody is being killed or having some emergency medical issue. Correct. You can forcibly enter that house under those circumstances, which is called exigent circumstances, right?
Right. And those are the key points you need here in Virginia to be able to enter that house. Now, I mean, and it also goes down to, like I said, I hear what you say, Preston. Yes, it's a very gray area, but obviously you got to be able to articulate your reasoning, your justification for going in there, because you're probably gonna be going in front of the judge and testifying your reasons why you entered a house without a valid search warrant, and like I said, the circumstantial evidence of going in there.
Right. And that was the other thing. A warrant. We mentioned that having a warrant, unless you can't enter. Obviously, you can enter a house if you have a warrant.
A warrant, right? But I think this situation here. I mean, I think you don't do it.
It's tough because I know that these officers are only thinking about whether or not there's a crime happening, and they didn't take a step back. Now, here's another way of looking at it.
You're not seeing that.
Right. Even though you got the neighbor calling, well, the neighbor is not the owner of the house. Maybe this neighbor didn't know that these guys were stand there, which was the case, right? You got to think of all those too as an officer. Like, okay, what do we really have here? A neighbor saw these guys sitting on the porch. Well, maybe they're supposed to be sitting on the porch. Neighbor saw them going in the house, or we saw them in the house. Maybe they're supposed to be in the house. Now I'm gonna go up to the door and knock. You know what I'm saying? I might even open the door if it's unlocked, but I'm not gonna cross that threshold because there's too many other possibilities. These guys maybe are supposed to be there. You got to think like that too. Okay, but I'm a open. I might even open the door and hey, anybody in there? Please. But I'm not gonna cross that threshold to enter past that doorway, right? Because I don't think in this situation you had enough to do that because it doesn't meet any of those points that we just talked about. It turns out ultimately, as you guys can see in the video, that these guys had permission to be there, and this neighbor just didn't know that they had permission to be there. Now, let's let the cat out the bag. Ultimately, the guy sued the police department, and a judge did find that the officers entered that house unlawfully, which is I understand why. You see what I'm saying? But keep in mind, these officers didn't have any ill will. They weren't trying to violate anybody's rights. That wasn't in their mind or thought process when they did what they did. But yeah, they entered unlawfully. You see what I'm saying? Because none of those situations existed at that moment.
Right.
What are some other things you could do, Corey? What would you have done if you didn't enter?
Well, like I said, I would have stayed there and tried to get them to come out and set a perimeter just in case they might try to run out the back. Because again, you don't know. And then try to get that warrant to come in.
It's easy to get a warrant nowadays. I mean, you do it right in the computer in your car nowadays, all electronically. At least out here in California, in many areas, a warrant is electronic. You type it up on the face page on the computer, and you just fill it in the boxes, and a judge signs it and sends it right back to you, and that's it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have done the same thing. I would have came up, tried to contact the owner, not a neighbor, but the actual owner of the house. Hey, there's somebody in your house. Are they supposed to be in there? You know, I would have tried to call them out the house. Hey, police department, can you come to the door for me or something? Because you still don't know if there's if they're burglaries. Burglarizing the house, because as far as you know, the neighbor thought that it was suspicious, but the neighbor is the neighbor.
Yeah. Well, like Preston said, I mean, you want to answer all those questions, and you're correct, Preston. Talk to the neighbor, make that phone call, have your backup unit. Hey, go talk to the neighbor across the street, the lady who made this phone call. Call for service, make sure that, like you said, Mike, have you seen these guys here before? Try to get now it was an old lady that lived there. So who's the next of kin that maybe some of the neighbors might know that has a number, get a hold of them to try to figure out who's who in the zoo. Because I think, like Zach said in one of his comments, is you don't know who's supposed to be there, so you want to do your due diligence, as he says, and figure all this out. So it's all those questions that have to be answered. So like Mike said, the guy ended up suing this Monona police department, and the
judge was in his favor, and I understand why. Don't forget, you like you said earlier, Court. A simple knock on the door, yeah, it's open. You called in there and nobody answered yet. But hey, how about ringing a doorbell, knocking on the door a little bit more, a little louder, please? Try to get somebody to come to that door so they know. I think that this guy didn't know that the cops are right outside his door. Had he known that, and he probably would have responded to the door, opened the door. He had no reason to hide in the house or nothing. So had his attention been gotten, for lack of better words, right? Yeah. If they would have gotten his attention, he likely would have just came to the door. Oh, hi, I'm such and such. We got permission to be here by the coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the big thing, though, also, Corey,
what's up, Frank?
is the CALM acronym. Even though these officers entered this man's house, had guns drawn on him, he followed the CALM acronym to a T.
To a
He
T.
complied. He answered their questions. You listened to what they were saying and why they were there, and he ultimately was able to move on. This could have gotten a lot uglier if he would have started like fighting with them or something like that, or this is why we encourage all citizens, aside from the legal aspect of it, don't do anything to escalate a situation more than it already is. This guy handled himself very well inside this house when dealing with police officers. He did it the right way, where he didn't feel that they did something lawful, so he took them to court and sued them and won. He's sitting up here waiting for his how much money he gonna get, right?
I don't know. I don't know, but he gonna
whatever
be
it is. Huh?
I think he gonna be set nice.
Yeah. So he handled it the right way. I applaud him for the way he handled himself with these cops in his house with guns drawn on him. Right. He followed the CALM acronym. He's alive and well and flourishing, and he turned around and sued the police department, that's how you handle that. If you think the officers did something unlawful,
you handle it in the court of law. Not in that house, or not on the side of the road, or anything like that. You handle it in court. And again, like I say, if you're uncertain of something like this, let it play out. Let them do what they need to do, and then you go consult with an attorney, and they'll let you know if you got a solid case. And that's the whole point behind the acronym of CALM, right? We want you to be safe. There's no reason for you to end up in an altercation with the police. If they're going to detain you, let them detain you, right? This has, and I'm gonna let Mike run with this point here after I say this. It doesn't always have to deal with race, and if it does have to deal with race, let it play out, right? You're going to be a great witness, so let it play out, and then get all the information you need, and you take it to court, right?
Yeah, that's true. I completely agree. I mean, and now how we try to stay away from racial issues. I mean, the question really now some people will have is, that reporting party only called because the guy was black. Well, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe she did call because he was black. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
See, now we're speculating.
We are speculating.
That's
now,
we can't do that.
Later, no, we shouldn't. But later in this video, these officers, it turns out one of the officers recognized the guy from school, or I guess he played football or something like that. Some kind of sport, it sounds like, in their local school there. He knew the coach. He knew this kid, and they were having a conversation. They were explaining to this kid why they were there and what had happened and all of that. They continue to go and try to confirm that this kid is supposed to be in the house. Number one, with his identification. Number two, the kid said the coach allowed them to stay in the house. Well, the officers are just trying to follow up with that and confirm, do you have the coach's number? Can you call a coach? Just so we can say, no, he's supposed to be here. We contacted the owner of the home, who said that he gave them permission to be there. So there's nothing more that we need to do here. The reason why you want to do that is since you are in there, you definitely want to try to confirm that they're supposed to be in there, right? But you gotta, as an officer, you gotta judge that aspect and say, okay, am I satisfied that this guy is supposed to be in the house, right? There's got to be a point where you got to feel that, and then okay, we good, and I'm out, right? We can speculate all day if he was black. Now, one thing I want to say to Corey is during the conversation, one of the officers had made a statement about why this woman called the police on him, and he threw out the words that she sees two black guys and thought it was suspicious. Now, here's my problem with that. Now, we try to stay away from race, But since this officer said that, here's my problem with that. It shows that he knew that them being two black guys may have been a part of the reason why she felt they were suspicious.
And
Now,
there's your key word, may.
May.
So again,
That's why I say may.
we're still
Yeah,
speculating.
we are. We still speculate.
Still speculating.
But I think the point I'm trying to get with this is white officers who are not racist and don't do their job based on race, they know when a call comes out and this could be a racial issue because they're only calling because he's black. I've been in situations to calls like that before with white officers where we both are looking at each other and like, yeah, we know that you probably wouldn't have got the cops called on you if you weren't black in this neighborhood doing this thing. That has been my experience before. And white officers know that. And white officers do feel that hesitancy to contact that guy for those reasons, because they know the first thing he's going to look at is, oh man, this is not a good look. It's not a good feeling. You think I'm stopping you because you're black, when that's not the case. I'm really just doing this job and handling this call for service like I would any other. But I do understand why you might feel that way. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think white officers, for the most part, they know when those kinds of calls come out, and they know why.
And see the gentleman here that was detained, he even said in there that, oh, I know that they called the cops on me because I'm black. Well, you made it about race, but at that point it wasn't. I mean, she recognized somebody that wasn't supposed to be there. Like, she never seen it. And so then that leads to the question, like, all right, well, as a neighbor, should you not be looking out for your neighbors?
Glad you brought that up. Now, I worked in the crime prevention unit for about 4 years at the department I worked at. And one of the responsibilities is crime prevention, neighborhood watch. So we would give presentations to citizens about how to prevent crime. One of the main things we would always teach our citizens is to contact police when they recognize suspicious activity or suspicious people in their neighborhood. And we would say that because they know their neighborhood better than anybody, right? Mm-hmm. They know when there's someone on their neighborhood that might be acting suspicious or they've never seen before, that might add to the suspicion, right? And we tell them and encourage them to call the police.
So let me
now,
ask you this.
Stop doing that? Would you stop doing that?
No. So let me ask you this now, Mike, then we'll get into Zach's question. So
okay.
is the caller who called the police, then is she racist?
That's that's the speculation part.
Was this then a racial, I guess, incident, if you will?
Who knows? Because we're not in the mind of that reporting party.
Well, just think about what you just said, though, bruh, about what you used to teach the citizens, right? she did exactly what you would have told her to do.
I knew he was gonna call me out on that.
No, I'm being. I mean, I'm saying. I mean, we got to be careful. Everything that involves the police and the black person doesn't always equal race.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
If I called, what would that make me if I called the police on these individuals? What would that make me?
I understand where you're coming from. Which is,
and I still described it the way she did. Hey, there's a black male over there wearing a white t-shirt and whatever, and flip-flops at this residence. And I know the lady, she died a few weeks ago, and nobody's been over there since then. And now these guys are over here. So, you might want to send a unit out to check it out.
Okay.
So what does that make me?
It just makes you an informed citizen about crime prevention and neighborhood.
My other neighbor calls and he whites and he does that. So is he going to be racist now? Because he called the cops on black people?
No, I can't assume that. I can't assume that. You know what I'm saying?
Suppose we're
I
gonna
see where you're
assume-
coming from. I see where you're coming from. I guess the only point I'm making too is sometimes they might be. Sometimes them being black might be an additional factor into why they think they're suspicious. Not every reporting party is like that, we know, but there may be some that are. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There may be some calls that officers respond to where it's a black person that they're going to have to contact, not because they think that the person is suspicious, but because some citizen thought that they were suspicious. So we're kind of obligated to go and at least handle that call.
Right.
If we don't contact them, at least look at what they're doing, which is what I used to do. Okay, there was calls I've gotten where someone would say there's a suspicious guy walking down the street. Okay, well, if all you got is he's walking down the street, there's no need for me to even contact this guy because he's not doing anything illegal. But that's on the officer to get there, determine what he or she is seeing, and taking the appropriate action. You don't always have to contact someone just because they were reported as suspicious. That depends on what they were reported as doing that was suspicious, right? But you're right. It don't necessarily make you a racist or racial just because you called and gave a physical description of someone who you thought was suspicious.
Right. And in tone, a welcome tone, and he makes what we're saying valid. I mean, you have to have a full description of the individual, and races included. I mean, you if I just said it's a 6'4", 280-pound male wearing a white t-shirt and jogging pants and a flip-flop. Now, who am I looking for? Right? Where do I start looking for this individual?
I see what you're saying. You're right.
You know, we
race
have
is definitely a part of the physical description. It should be. It always will be.
Right? But that doesn't make you racial.
No, it doesn't. You just describing the person that you are seeing, which is the most helpful for any officer responding to that call.
Right. You're right, Zach. Yeah, we put it on our ID cards. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. You're right.
We have to identify ourselves. We got to know who we're looking for. Right. But
and as far as these guys entering that house unlawfully, cops make mistakes sometimes too. Sometimes we might need a quick brush up on the law ourselves. You do a job long enough, or sometimes there might be an aspect that you need to refresh yourself on.
Oh, yeah.
But keep in mind, as long as that officer has good intentions, then you can't look at that officer and say, "Oh, you're a bad cop. You messed up and did." Yeah, you make mistakes, but it wasn't their intention to violate this guy's rights. No. I don't think that was in their mind when they did what they did. Now, they did enter unlawfully, so hey, the guy handled it correctly. They got sued, and it is what it is, right? Yeah. That's how you handle it.
Should they lose their jobs over this?
No, I don't think so, because there's no criminal intent or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Their intentions were not like, oh, we going to round up the black guys. That wasn't their intention in this particular call for service, right? So you can't. They're only acting with good intentions. They're just trying to confirm there's no crime happening here, and as soon as we're finished, we can let you go.
Right. So back to Zach's question a while ago here, and we apologize. I think he was.
Sorry, Zach. We start rambling.
I think he was asking, how much time do you spend on this call for service until you get the answers that you need, until you as the officer are 100% beyond a reasonable doubt that this individual has a right to be here.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I'm not sure that's a set answer there, Zach. I mean, I guess that depends on the individual officer. Like, at what point, Zach, let me ask you, at what point would you have been satisfied that this guy was supposed to be there? Was it after he gave you the ID? Would you have needed to contact the coach on the phone? At what point, that's what it boils down to. At what point does that individual officer feel satisfied that, okay, I'm no longer needed here, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get those 5 dubs answered: the who, what, where, when, and why. Once you have those answers, I think you're done, right? And you're able to, okay, hey, apologize for interrupting your movie, and we're gonna get out your hair, and you enjoy the rest of your evening, right? But it didn't work out that way for this guy. This guy went on ahead and filed a lawsuit against him,
Mhm.
and and it is what it is now. So, but I don't think, like you said, Mike, they had the intentions of. I mean, they weren't. What's they didn't go in there and busting down the doors and
No.
throwing things out. I mean, I think still, even though the entry was unlawful, I think they still handled themselves very professional.
Yeah. The
Uh,
only part was the entry itself. Once they were in the house, they did what I would have done. Again, like Corey and I explained to you before, we were explaining to you what we would have done, assuming we lawfully entered the house. So
right,
once they were in the house, they did what was normal. They didn't know who this guy was. They didn't know whether or not he was supposed to be there. They detained him. They put cuffs on him, at least temporarily, until they had enough information to feel like, okay, there's no more need to detain this guy. Let's take the cuffs off of him, right?
right. So
Um,
Zach answered your question here, and he said I would have, excuse me, I would have knocked on the doors next to this place and the guy who called, and then go on. If
yeah,
I
yeah.
see nothing, it's a deceased home. Right. It was a deceased home with somebody in there who the caller didn't think ought to be there. So yeah, I mean, you would have to talk. I would have talked to the neighbors as well.
Yeah, you talk to more than just the reporting party, since it's the reporting
Correct.
party that was a neighbor. If you can talk to other neighbors, hey, you guys know, you're right, Zach. I would have done that too. That's a good thing. Get more than just that one person saying, because that one neighbor may not have enough, obviously didn't have enough information to think otherwise than what she thought. Uh, and this is why it's important that we teach in neighborhood watch and stuff like that. Let neighbors know what's going on, because your neighbor might see somebody at your house and
Right.
may not recognize them and might call the police on them. So if I'm
Mhm.
going out of town, or I'm I got somebody staying at my house when I ain't there or something, yeah, I might let my neighbor know, hey, just so you know, I'm out, I'm not gonna be around, but I got somebody staying at my house. So if you see somebody strange that you don't recognize, or a car that you've never seen before, it's cool. Don't worry about it, right? So it's a good idea to let your neighbors know that stuff, so that stuff like this doesn't happen, right?
Now, again, we asked, if these guys should have been fired. No, they should not have, but they should have gone through some type of retraining. But I agree with you, Preston. Well, see, you guys have what we call in-service training every month,
Mhm.
uh, which is really good. But they should go through some type of retraining, knowing what we call search and seizure training. Go through
Sure,
that again, and
sure.
understand when and where you can enter a home.
And even when we did training, if we didn't go to training or something like that, we did training every day in patrol briefings. When we did stuff like we doing right now, Corey, we look at a video and we talk about it and say, we brush up on that law
Mhm.
of when you can, under what circumstances you can enter a house or not. I don't know if that necessarily happens across the country. You know what I'm saying? But in our department, yeah, we used briefings as training, as an opportunity to train as well, just discussing laws and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. we didn't have briefings. We started our shifts in our driveways and
Started right out the street.
yeah, started right. But however, this is like, you know, when we do meet up at the office or when we do have our area office meeting, you know, we talk about these things, and then we also talk about it when we go through in-service training. So the training is done. I think these guys just jumped the gun a little bit. I don't, like I said, I don't think they had the right intentions, but went about it the wrong way.
There you go. There you go.
I would say that. But you know, it is what it is, and again, it's staying calm, compliant, answering questions, listening, moving on.
Absolutely.
And it was to the T. I mean, I don't think you could have scripted this any better.
If there's one point we want to drive home, is how this guy handled himself with these two officers in his house unlawfully, right? He handled himself great. He followed that CALM acronym. He's alive and well and was able to turn around and sue the department, which is how we encourage you to handle a situation like that. Don't do something physical to escalate that contact because you're angry and feel that they don't have a right to do that. Don't do that, because we can't speak for every officer. We don't know what officer you might encounter. You see what I'm saying? You might encounter a hothead who turn around and do something crazy because you decided to fight or you decided to do something that escalated the situation. Just do what the officer's telling you to do, right or wrong, you know, so that you can get out of there and be good. Go sue them later if you feel you were wrong. Turn around and sue them, you know?
Yeah. And again, I agree with you, Preston. I mean, every department is different. Some chief of police may not have a heartburn with the officer's approach, but again, we have to look at the letter of the law. What does the law say? Yeah, I agree. I have no. If you don't look at the law, I think these guys had good intentions with what they did. Because what if, let's just say that the lady wasn't dead. She was gone out of town on vacation, Mike. She was gone out of town on vacation, and the same person, she calls it in and comes to find out, you know, well, the lady's out of town on vacation. Do you go in the house or do you not go in the house? Is there a difference between the lady being dead or the lady
dead or on vacation? No, I don't think there's a difference. I don't. She's not there now. If
so
she
it doesn't change your tactics then, right? So
no,
then,
it doesn't change your tactics. Right. Now, if she called, though, what I'm gonna tell you what does change. If the actual tenant, the owner of the house, if they called and said, "Hey, I think there's somebody in my house and ain't nobody supposed to be there," well, now that changes a little bit. Because now you got the owner telling you, wait a minute, somebody's burglarizing my house or something. Ain't nobody supposed to be in that house. Now, that's a whole different ball game.
That's a whole different ball game.
Right. But in this case, it was a neighbor who may or may not have had accurate information. You see?
So when we look at the letter of the law, excuse me, when we look at the letter of the law, these guys didn't have the circumstantial evidence, enough probable cause to enter this house. But they did. And I get you, Preston. Like, yeah, some chief of police may not have a problem with it, but that ain't gonna stop, you know, the judge in the courthouse. It's like, well, no, you didn't. Unless you can articulate your reasoning for going in that house and articulate yourself very well. That's the only way you're going to be able to get out of this. You know what I mean? For what they did. So I think this was a good discussion. I think
it's a good discussion.
Yeah, and we hope you got something out of it. You know, now you know when an officer has the legal right to enter your home. Now, I also challenge you to not just listen to what we say, but look it up for yourselves. Go to your local criminal defense attorney's websites and look at the laws, because a lot of them post up-to-date changes to the laws and have things like this on there. You know, or just call and ask, hey, what's an unlawful entry? When can a police officer enter my home?
Or, you know, you can go on the internet and type up case law for unlawful entries or something like that. And you'll have a bunch of case law that you can go and read the case law, find out what happened on that particular case and what a judge decided, you know. You know, so you can definitely research the law. Just make sure you're doing it from reliable sources and stuff like that. Any case law, you can look it up and it'll show you word for word what that case law was about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So thank y'all for joining us tonight. We hope you got something out of this. And if you have any additional comments, go ahead and leave it down there below. Go ahead and like and share and share this out. And if you're new, go ahead and subscribe to our channel so you stay up to date on our latest videos. Mike and I come out every Thursday evening at 8:05 with a new video. So we'll be back next Thursday with another exciting video. And we hope you all tune in and join us next week. Mike, any last words?
Nah, you guys stay safe out there. Peace out.
Peace.